Hello guys, it is Gated Theories here, and Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. Season 7 is literally around the corner now from filming this video. As everyone knows, this season will be, unfortunately, the last ever season of this show that we all love. And it has basically been the only MCU spin-off show that's really lasted this long. It was one of the originals and now has been going for 7 years, and that's a very long time, so it makes sense why they're finally bringing it to a close, as it's had its time to be on air. But isn't it in the MCU, and that's not stopping anytime soon? So why is Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. stopping if the MCU is still going and is nowhere near about to stop? And that is because after many years, it's becoming more and more apparent that the show and the cinematic universe are separating, unfortunately. So today, we're going to see just whether Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. is still a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or whether it's in its own universe by itself. But before we go any further, please make sure that you click that red subscribe button and have your notifications turned on so that you get notified whenever we make a new video. So, firstly, was Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. originally in the MCU? Definitely. There's no doubt about that. I mean, the main character is Phil Coulson. He is basically the character who connected all of Phase 1 movies together before the Avengers. Appearing in the first ever movie, Iron Man, then Thor, and literally, he is the reason the Avengers assembled in 2012. Because in 2012, it's Phil Coulson's death by Loki that literally motivates the team to work together and defeat Loki's army. The first season of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. is all about how Phil Coulson survived his death in Avengers Assemble, which definitely is part of the MCU. Plus, Season 1 has Nick Fury in at the end, and is basically the lead up and behind the scenes of Captain America Winter Soldier, as the finale literally takes place at the same time as that movie. So, is Season 1 in the MCU? Definitely yes, no doubt about it. Moving on to Season 2, I'd say yes as well, it definitely is. S.h.i.e.L.D. is having to be kept a secret in the show, as it is supposedly destroyed from the events of the Winter Soldier. It may seem at first like it's distancing itself from the cinematic universe, however, in the MCU, S.h.i.e.L.D. is hiding, so Season 2 is basically doing the same thing. As for Season 3, it's basically the same. S.h.i.e.L.D. is hiding in both the TV show and the cinematic universe, plus there's many hints and phrases that characters say suggesting they're definitely still part of this universe. For example, in Season 3, Phil Coulson mentions Ultron and the events of Avengers Age of Ultron, so clearly they're still in the same universe. Then we move on to Season 4. This was the part where it looked like a glimmer of hope may be coming. We knew Captain Marvel was near, which was definitely going to have Phil Coulson in, and in Season 4, S.h.i.e.L.D. begins making itself known to the public again. It honestly seemed like we could get the characters from the TV show, such as Daisy, in other words Quake, appear in the main universe in a movie, such as an Avengers movie. However, Civil War then came out, so that basically stopped the opportunity of any S.h.i.e.L.D. characters appearing in movies. Although Jeffrey Mace, the director of S.h.i.e.L.D. at the time, does mention the Sokovia Accords and the fact that Steve Rogers sort of went rogue. So again, definitely part of the main cinematic universe. But then, Season 5 came, which I love, don't get me wrong, but it completely blew any chance of this TV show still being part of the MCU away and just into the water. And Season 6 afterwards also just doesn't add up. We'll come back to the first part of Season 5 later when they're in the future, and let's just focus now on the second half of Season 5, because again, it looked hopeful. Season 5 takes place around the time of Infinity War, and that's easy to work out just by seeing how many years have passed since 2012 from the TV show and from the movies. And in the finale of Season 5, the Kree even mentioned that Thanos has started attacking Earth. We don't really know how long Avengers Infinity War takes place overall, but it's definitely more than one day. So if Thanos has just started attacking Earth at this point at the end of Season 5, then he's probably attacking Iron Man, Spider-Man and Doctor Strange with the Hulk in New York at this point. Which means by the time Season 5 ends with Daisy quaking Talbot from destroying the world, it should line up with around the time where Thanos is attacking in Wakanda. So much so that you could say that the end of Season 5 in Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. is when the snap takes place. However, not a single person, not even one person who is a part of the main team, snaps out of existence. Now, they could just all be lucky. After all, Iron Man only loses Peter. He doesn't lose anyone from his own family, so he was pretty lucky in Avengers Endgame. However, there is a lot of people who are part of this S.h.i.e.L.D. team. If we're just listing the main characters as well as a few side characters who are still around the team at this time, we have May, Daisy, Mac, Gemma, Leopold, Yo-Yo, Deke, Piper, and Davis, because at this point, Phil Coulson is dead again. So that is 9 people. Now that's a lot, and there is a 50% chance of any of them snapping out of existence. So you'd suppose, if you're lucky, only 4 of them snap out of existence. But no, none of them do. I won't bore you with the maths, but if there's 9 people and there's a 50% chance they may disappear but none of them do, they had, get ready for this, a 1 in 512 chance of that happening. That is 0.0019% chance that they all survived, and yet they did. Now that is very unlikely to happen, and yet none of the main team is snapped out. That just doesn't add up. And that's not the worst part. I'd like to think these agents care about the world and people. After all, they do save the world from Hydra, the Kree, and insane androids quite a lot. But in Season 6, surely they'd care about the people. Bearing in mind, Season 6, from what Daisy tells us, takes place 1 year after the finale of Season 5, as Daisy, Simmons, and Davis have now been travelling around space looking for Fitz for around 1 whole year now. Now, if they didn't want to comment on the snap, I'd understand. I mean, they have been travelling in space for a whole year now, so I get why they wouldn't mention the snap. And I know the team is technically still hiding on Earth in the lighthouse, but surely they would mention the snap at one point. Bearing in mind, if this is still part of the MCU, they're in the middle of what is known as the blip. And worst of all, they're right at the beginning of it. The blip is the 5-year period of time where half the population has disappeared. Avengers Endgame mainly takes place on the 5th year, and people are still very much depressed and can't get over it. Black Widow's still crying, there's no sports games happening, and just look at when Ant-Man returns and sees the state of the world. Everyone is still very much depressed. If Season 6 of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. takes place only 1 year into the blip, then people are going to be even more depressed and traumatized than they are in Avengers Endgame. Yet, no one, repeat, no one at all is freaking out. I get the agents haven't really been close to anyone else for the past few years who aren't part of S.h.i.e.L.D., but they'll have definitely all lost someone. Yet, they're just going by like it's no worry. And this depression isn't just happening on Earth, it's happening across the entire universe, so clearly something's up. They wouldn't be acting like this, and the chance of all 9 of them surviving is just not a possibility. So clearly, the snap never happened in this universe of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. But before I mentioned that Thanos was mentioned in Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D., and that's very true. But maybe in this universe, Thor goes for the head and actually the snap never happens. Thanos still comes, but in Infinity War, they defeat him. So how did Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. suddenly not become a part of the MCU? Well, it's very simple. The real world. Kevin Feige, basically the leader of Marvel and their company, recently became control of all the TV shows, and let's just say, he doesn't really like the spin-offs. You have Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. acknowledging the Avengers all the time, but do the Avengers ever really acknowledge the Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. characters after Civil War? No, because Kevin Feige doesn't really want the spin-off TV shows to be there at all. That's one of the reasons why Agents of S.h.i.E.L.D. is basically one of the only spin-off shows left standing, and it's the reason why it's basically ending. Because the main spin-offs, such as the Disney Plus shows, are all becoming the main spin-off TV shows, and they're going to be playing big roles. To keep up with the movies, you apparently are going to have seen these new Disney Plus spin-off shows. So Kevin Feige has been pulling the main MCU away from these old spin-off TV shows for years now, and it seems like he has achieved it. But if we're on about the cinematic universe itself, how has Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. become separate if it was originally in the universe? And the simple answer is time travel. In the first part of Season 5, the team enter a monolith that takes them to the future where the Earth has fully been destroyed by the Kree, and there's basically no one left. All the humans are living underground, so the whole season is to go back in time and prevent this future from happening. And that's exactly what they do. They travel back to the present and manage to prevent the Earth being destroyed, which is what we discussed about before. And then the future that we see in Season 6 is fine, and the world hasn't been quaked apart. So they succeeded. They stopped the world from being destroyed. However, it's through this that they may have separated themselves from the main cinematic universe, and that is because of how time travel works in the MCU. Avengers Endgame first introduces time travel, however, not like any normal type of time travel that we're used to. The whole way it works in the MCU is when you go back in time and change something, it doesn't affect the future. Instead, it creates a separate new alternative timeline with that new future, and the main future in the main timeline isn't affected. In other words, creating a multiverse. In fact, the Loki spin-off Disney Plus TV show that's about to come out is taking place in one of these alternative timelines from when Loki escapes in Endgame when they return to 2012. Plus, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is going to deal with these alternative timelines. And Avengers Endgame makes sure you know about how time travel works. I mean, they mention it all the time and explain it in many different ways, such as the Hulk explaining it and then the Ancient One explaining it. So there's no chance no one can say there's a continuity error. After all, it's the biggest movie of all time. They basically just made it easier for themselves. In fact, in the first episode of Season 7 of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D., there's a scene that's been shown where the team discuss time travel, and Deke describes basically the time travel that works in this universe, which is the same to Avengers Endgame. Now, if we apply these time travel rules to the Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. universe, we can see there's something very different. You could first look at the character Robin, who's helped the team in many situations, who has the ability to be able to see in the future and the past, and basically has the ability to be able to see different alternative timelines from the future or the past, so different futures, different pasts, and she manages to be able to tell the team all about this. The agents travel to the future where the Earth is destroyed, and we know that in the main MCU, the Earth in the future isn't destroyed by the Kree. The agents then return, and like we said, none of them get snapped. So, from the first stage, when they go forward in time through the monolith, they end up entering a different alternative timeline. Especially when they return back in time to prevent it from happening. All they're doing is creating a new alternative timeline for themselves. And it's through that where basically the team have managed to separate themselves a lot through the different alternative timelines that they've created by time traveling. So much so that they're not in the same timeline to the rest of the main MCU anymore, which is where they were in before from seasons 1 to season 4. Not to mention the fact that all of season 7 is taking place in the past, so even more changes may happen. In turn, they're going to end up in completely different alternative timelines to the main MCU. So, is Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. still in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? It definitely used to be, but now, unfortunately, it isn't part of the main timeline. So, instead of it being in the main universe that we're used to, instead it's in an alternative timeline, or in other words, inside the huge multiverse. But since Phase 4 will be dealing with the multiverse, maybe there's a small chance that the characters will appear in the movies eventually. But anyway, guys, that's the end of the video. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, make sure that you smash that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Tell us in the field section down below what you think about this theory. Do you think that Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. is still in the MCU, or do you think that it isn't whatsoever anymore? And let me know your theories about how you think it might not still be a part of the MCU down below in the comment section down there. And as always, we've been here at Gate for Theories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.